All right, my beef with Chris Roberts and Cloud Imperium Games aside, we're going to go over the combat capabilities of the 325A. And I don't really have anything to compare it against, which is a bit annoying. You can't sort of fly ships that you haven't bought already, which I feel is a bit cheap. I think you should be able to, sort of a try before you buy policy. But then I suppose no one would really buy the ships and back it, and then, they'd never break the $70 million mark. Sorry, we're leaving the beef aside. The 325A, it's agile. The shields are pretty decent. The weapons I quite like, but the weapons rely very heavily on accuracy because they're as you can see, they're like one shot. They're not beam and they're not very, very rapid fire. So it can be quite difficult at times to just line up your shots and get it right. But because they're so powerful, it does really reward you like very heavily for good accuracy and stuff. I was having a lot of troubles with aiming because I'm using a HOTAS, which still aren't properly implemented. And again, that's something else for another video that I've actually got in the works. But yeah, 325A, I've kind of, I don't know, 50-50 go between really enjoying this game and thinking it's just terrible. Because if you use the mouse, if you're using mouse and keyboard, then you're totally sorted. You're absolutely set. This game is for you. It's great. But if you use the expensive HOTAS that you bought in excitement for a space game, then you're buggered. But yeah, back to the 325A. It's got 12 maneuvering thrusters and they're Tech 1 scalpels. It's got 2 big Tech 3 or Structure 3 or whatever the system is now. Structure 3 hard points for those big lasers on the side. The big lasers are really good, but the nose cannon, the mass driver, which was one that I was actually quite excited about and I thought would be really cool, simply because it's called a mass driver and that sounds amazing. The mass drive is actually pretty rubbish. It doesn't do very much damage, so it doesn't really reward you for the accuracy as much, but it's still fairly slow firing. So I would primarily use also it's because it's a ballistic weapon, because there's differences between energy and ballistic in this. Ballistic being, it's got a ballistic, so you have to fire something. It's got to have ammo, whereas energy weapons, they overheat, but they're infinite ammo sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's maneuverable. It's got decent shields. The shield recharges really quick. And I'm not sure if they're going to balance that out or not, or if it is already balanced in the game, because I didn't do any Spectrum stuff, so I didn't do any multiplayer stuff. I just did drone sim, because I thought if I go up against someone who's practiced and is using a mouse, and I'm using a HOTAS, and I don't really play Star Citizen very often, so I'm not used to the flight mechanics, which is for another video. So I thought I'd just get dunked on. From the videos I've seen of other people playing, the 325A does tend to get destroyed by the Hornets, but the Hornets are specifically combat orientated. A Hornet is a close support, heavily armed, heavily shielded, almost like a gunship, and the 325A is basically it's James Bond's car, right? It's James Bond's car. It's flash, it's cool, it's got guns on it, but it will get wrecked if it goes up against like a tank or something, which is, a Hornet, a specific military vessel. All in all, I think, it looks cool. I'm still glad that I bought the 325A over the Hornet, because the 325A has more functionality and yet it retains enough firepower to stand up in a gunfight. It also has 2 missile launchers, one on each sort of wing. And they've got 2 missiles each. You can only have 2 missiles each per combat because you can't reload in space, which I quite like. I actually really like the mechanic that, a sort of, you can't just magic yourself some missiles into your missile launchers. You've actually got to put them in when you're in a hangar. A big machine comes along and loads them in, sort of thing. And the missiles are really good. You can, I think, dumbfire them, so you can, instead of locking on and waiting for that whole procedure to go through, you can just straight up bloop, press the button and it'll fire. I did that on my HOTAS, but I haven't figured out how to do it on my mouse yet. So I'm not sure if it's a bug with the HOTAS controls or if it's a feature that I just didn't you know, I didn't see the key bindings for on the keyboard. Missile launchers are really good. They're really quite high damage. I'm not sure what I'm not sure what they're like in Spectrum. I'm really sorry about that. But I just thought if I did play Spectrum, it would be me getting blown up a lot and getting really angry, and then I would just never play this game again because I'd be too frustrated. But the missiles are, lock on. You press your missile button, it locks on. You press the missile button again, it fires your missile, and whoever you were pointing at is dead. They're good like that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the complete armament of the 325A. And I said earlier in the video, which was, I've done the recording in 2 parts because I had to go for dinner. The nose cannon, the mass driver, is actually a bit better than I thought, because before I was using my HOTAS. The difference between HOTAS and mouse, I was using my HOTAS, and it was it would only fire in front of me. Whereas if you've got your mouse, if you can see on the screen here, you can see there's a little cross in front of me, and that's directly where my ship is pointing. So that's where the forward-firing weapons go. And there's a little circle as well with a dot in the middle, and that's where your gimbaled weapons are going as well. So the mass driver can sort of look around on a gimbal, so it can shoot at people who aren't directly in front of you. So it's pretty useful for that. But I still kind of don't like it because it doesn't do that much damage. And it has ammo that runs out. But yeah, there's not really much more to say. I think most of the stats of it I've covered in my 325A video that I did sort of ages ago, when you could sort of play around with it in your hangar. But I think what they're doing is revamping the insides of it because of the storage problems, because obviously there's no real cargo capacity for it. It's just like a big engine and then the living space, and there's no way you can put cargo, but it does magically have cargo capacity in its stats. So I think they're rejigging all that, and obviously you've got to take it out of people's hangars to do that. All in all, decent ship, glad I bought it. From what I can see, it doesn't go toe-to-toe with Hornets, but you wouldn't expect it to, because they're more expensive and they're specific combat ships. That's it, really. Thanks very much for watching. Laters, taters.